ZombiU. Alright, one thing we can kind of agree on right off the bat is that the name of the game is kinda weird. I'm sure that by this point you've heard all the tons of hype for the game pre-launch, and all the disappointment for the game post-launch. It's definitely been quite the polarizing game, but I decided to check it out anyway since I'm still in full-on Wii U mode. Because I mean really, what's the worst thing that could happen? Worst case scenario, it ends up being another Red Steel. And really, the chances of ZombiU being as, good as Red Steel were pretty slim. So what does one more random schmo on the internet think of ZombiU? Let's find out. Oh, and since the game doesn't really have much in the way of music, I'll be playing music from Mario instead. Alright? Alright. Now let's start with the story, and here's the kicker. There really isn't a story. You start off as a random guy in the middle of a zombie apocalypse, and you're greeted by a disembodied voice of someone who refers to himself as the Prepper. He guides you to a safe house, and from there on out, you simply end up doing mission after mission. You do end up meeting a few other people, like a doctor who's trying to cure the plague, but honestly, the more you try paying attention to the story, the more aggravated you're gonna get. Not to say it's really that bad, as it does fit the role of being a clueless survivor pretty well, but like, there's a whole plot point of the Prepper knowing something like this was gonna happen, and I can't even recall if they ever fully explained it, cause I just stopped caring. This is not a story-driven game as far as I'm concerned. The ending is also incredibly lame. Going into the game expecting any sort of story is bound to set you up for disappointment. As I mentioned before, you spend a majority of the game going to set points on your map to fulfill missions, and you basically just rinse and repeat that for most of the game. It's an adventure designed around exploration, and it just so happens that everywhere you explore is filled with zombies. And since the game is actually set in London, you even explore Buckingham Palace, which is also filled with zombies. To fend off all the undead, you're armed with a wide arsenal of different guns you'd find throughout the way, different items like flashes and Molotov cocktails, and actually the most useful, your handy cricket bat, where combat ends up resulting in no more than hold the left trigger to prepare, and hit the right trigger to strike, over and over again. And in normal mode, zombies take forever to take out, making these things way more annoying and tedious than intense. So word of advice, just play the game on easy mode. You may end up feeling like a chicken as the game literally calls you, but I actually ended up enjoying the game a lot more once zombies weren't total pests. Core gameplay doesn't vary much from there, but there's actually a lot of different tweaks and gimmicks that the game pulls off to make it a pretty unique adventure. The most raved about one is the one that when you die, and that's not an if, that's when you die, instead of just losing your stuff, your person turns into a zombie, you come back as another random survivor, and you have to go find your old self and take them out to get your stuff back. But if you fail and die on the way, you permanently lose all that stuff. And honestly, this did not feel that great to me. Because think about it, the reason you die is typically because there are too many zombies. So having to go back to that horde with less equipment and an extra zombie doesn't really sound that ideal. I don't know, I just couldn't help but feel like this is something that's better on paper than in reality. But then again, in easy mode, there were a few less zombies, so again for me, this made it more enjoyable. Yeah, you could argue that it's pure challenge the other way around, but personally I just found it frustrating, but calm down, I'm not saying it's an inherent problem with the game, it's just not for me. But what is cool is that the game is also high score based, where every survivor has a score, so it's like a personal challenge to see how far you can make it in the game with only one survivor. And that's actually pretty cool. The whole beating Pikmin in as few days as possible mentality just shines through here. And then there's all the use of the controller, which actually, you know what, you may have heard by now, but it has a pretty big touchscreen on it. I know, it's crazy, right? For most of the game, it shows a map and radar of nearby zombies, and it's your primary source for managing your items. You have to manage weapons, ammo, and health items by placing a few of them in your hotbar for easy access, and you do all this in real time, so the game does not pause when you do so. So if there's a crowd of zombies coming towards you and you want to pull out a grenade from your bag, good luck with that, not gonna go over very well. There's also plenty of times you need to open up a path by entering a code or taking off planks barricading a door. And these are sorta 50-50. Stuff like code inputs end up being cool because what you touch actually matters, but for barricaded doors and other things, you just keep tapping the screen, which seems kinda unintuitive to me. Then by holding the L button, you can use the pad as a scanner and look around the room for things you can loot. And you pretty much do the same thing for aiming down a turret gun or sniper rifle. Now aiming down the scope for a gun actually feels pretty damn cool, whereas scanning just feels pretty arduous and unnecessary. Man, it's just weird, it's practically a 50-50 split between good uses of the gamepad and underwhelming uses. But luckily, it's never awful. Just prepare yourself to be switching your vision from the TV to your controller multiple times. Now by hearing everything I said earlier, it may seem like this game is really nothing special tacked on with a bunch of gimmicks, but honestly where the game shines is with the atmosphere. The entire adventure just feels really spooky and unsettling, and I really like that. The game does do a few pop scares, but it's not overwhelming, which is very appreciated. But to me, there was one area in the game that was actually somewhat terrifying. I'll let you guys find out for yourself, but there is a distinct area in the game designed to freak you out, and it kinda succeeds. It's just a shame that there's only one of those fully spooky areas. You know what, actually, a lot of people said the game is pretty scary all around, and actually coming from a guy who's somewhat easily scared, I didn't really think so. Unsettling? Definitely. Terrifying? Nah. Lastly, I just want to do a quick mention of the multiplayer here, because there's actually multiplayer. But unfortunately, I just didn't really care for it. One person plays on the TV with a Wiimote nunchuck or Pro Controller as a survivor with a gun, while the gamepad player is the Zombie King, and it's actually a top-down strategy game where you can place various types of zombies to get in the survivor's way. Now the concept is pretty freaking awesome, as this is something that can really only be done on the Wii U. It's competitive multiplayer that has an FPS fight against an RTS. But unfortunately, it just really wasn't for me. I have seen a few people say they like the multiplayer mode more than the campaign, but I actually ended up really liking the campaign, so that's where I stand. Oh, and also that extra mode that turns your face into a zombie is here as well, and it's actually pretty humorous. You can't really do anything with it, but it's just cool that Ubisoft showed the ambition to make sure every feature of the Wii U is used.
I'm hungry now.
Use kill me regime.
ZombiU is definitely a weird game. The best thing I could say for it is that it actually brings a pretty original adventure to the table. In concept, it may not be the most original thing in the world, but the execution made it pretty enjoyable. I can honestly say that I can't really recall playing anything like this before. The only thing I can kinda compare it to is Minecraft, since it's based on survival and item management, but you don't need me to tell you that that's not really a fair comparison. The main question though is, should you buy this game at full price for your new bright and shiny Wii U? And it depends. I ended up buying the game a bit cheaper than retail at $50, and I'm actually fine with that, but I'm also a bit more forgiving when it comes to prices. It really just depends on how you go into the game. If the idea of a survival horror game based on atmosphere and interesting touchscreen mechanics interest you, then give it a shot. I don't unfortunately find it to be as amazing as some people online would say, but it's definitely a good game. Don't expect total frights like Amnesia, and don't expect anything amazing like Resident Evil 4. But people who are saying this game is awful are being way too harsh. This game is way closer to a 7 or 8 than a 4. Oh, and hey, I think I got something for my tagline for the game. I guess you could say this game is pretty ZombiU. Neek! And now with your heads placed firmly in your palm, that is the end of the review. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it, and as always, I will catch y'all next time.